That is amazing. It sounds easy.
I know.
It don't sound like you need a lot, but it's not as easy as Jesus seemed to make it sound for me. How about you? Do you agree with me? Oh, if you just had the faith of the size of a mustard seed, you just say to this mountain, be yonder, and it'll go. Well, I thought I had that much faith. Man, where's my faith? I can't even speak to a headache and watch it run. Let alone the mountain. What in the world is going on here? Tell me, where's the problem? All things are possible, yeah. It could happen, it could not. It's like, I know that Joseph had a handle on this thing when he heard from God, because did you know prophecy's as good as you make it? It's possible. Everybody say it's possible.
Possible.
Does that mean it's definite?
No.
That's what I want you to hear this morning. Does that mean it's definite? It's not definite. Just because Jesus said all things are possible does not mean it's definite. It absolutely could happen. No question, it can happen. There's a God big enough to make it all happen. Can you hear me? God is big enough to make it all happen. With God, all things are possible. That's true. But does it mean it will happen? No. Did you know there's a lot of Christian people that die? And it could have happened that they didn't. But they died. That's why I love Henry Gruver so much. He's such an example to me. I tried my best to get him to put on CD his recovery from the stomach cancer. But he went everywhere but there. I said, Henry, come on. He went 2 hours and 15 minutes and he never got there. He got to some interesting stories. I put him up on YouTube and we've got a lot of hits on it. But I wanted him to tell his story of his bout with cancer in the stomach. Because all things are possible. And everybody told him, Henry, you better do something. You're going to die. Aren't friends lovely? Henry, you better do something. You're going to die. Did you know that people don't survive cancer, Henry? They die. Thank you very much. I'll just stick by the word. You know what? That man never went to the doctor. He never, everybody say never. He never went to a doctor. Man, I'm saying, what a man of God this guy is. We think of people, great men of God, this and that and the other, but we know people that are just ordinary old folks like us that are great men of God. I'll always honor Henry as one of the most fantastic men of God I've ever met. That's my opinion. I don't know what yours is. You might think, well, he's just no hick. You can call him what you want, but old hicks have power. And he never went to a doctor. All things are possible, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get healed. But he told me, he said, Larry, he showed me his Bible. He said, see this Bible? He said, see how it's all weird? He said, it's all weird. See this? He said, yes, sir. I said, yeah. He said, I'd hold that Bible on my stomach and I would be hurt so bad, sweating profusely. He said, because I was dying physically. He said, and it would just soak my Bible in sweat. He said, and I wouldn't give up. He said, I'd let him read my Bible for hours and hours and hours at a time. He said, I'd get up and prayer walk. What a man of God. He said, it hurt so bad at times. He got to the place, you probably heard him, I don't know if you've heard him tell the story or not, but he met a doctor finally when he was about 2 weeks from death. That's what the doctor told him. He says, you know what? She asked him some questions. She said, well, what's going on in your life? And he goes, well, a couple days ago, he said, I had horrible convulsions. He said, and I just convulsed. He said, my wife thought I was going to die from the convulsions. He said, and I just bend over and just roll my eyes and roll back. Horrible things. And she said, well, that's a sign of your last stages. You're going to die. In a couple of weeks, you'll be dead. Henry says, oh, doctor, I believe God. I don't think I'm going to die. I'm not going to die. I'm going to stop. He said, I'll tell you what. Either God heals me or I'll die, but I'm not going to go see no doctor. Whew, boy, that just takes me back a step. Got to a place where the awesome story was that he went to a church to preach the last 2 days of his life. That's what the doctor told him. He didn't go to see a doctor, but a doctor was sitting across the table from him. in a restaurant, and this doctor told him, this is what you can expect, and in a couple of days you're going to die. He didn't actually go to see her. I mean, he didn't hire her to give him the diagnosis. She just was there, and that's what she told him. He said, okay. So he said, well, I ain't changing anything. He said, I'm just going to stay in the Word, and I'm going to hug this thing, and I'm going to hang on to God. He went to a church, and he said he got to the church, and he said, I could not walk. I was so weak. He said, they carried me in the pastor's office. He said, I sat down. He said, they sang for a while. He said, it was my turn. And he said that going up to the platform, there were 7 stairs going up. He said it was up. He said, and I told the Lord, I'll never make them stairs. You don't help me, I'm not going to get up there. He said, and I finally got to the front. He said, there was 2 big old men standing down there. And he said, they grabbed my arms, and he said, they helped me to the top. He said, and I stood there behind the pulpit hanging on. He said, but I preached the gospel. What a man of God. I love this guy. It gives me a drive to say, you know what, I want that. I like that. He said, I hung on to the platform. I hung on to the pulpit. He said, and I got through. He said, when I got through, he said, I thought I was going to die right at the flat. He said, I thought I was going to die there. He said, but I managed. He said, they took me back down the stairs. They said, we're going to pray for Henry. He said, and they set me out in the open down there in the chair. He said, I couldn't stand up. He said, I was hurting so bad you can't believe how bad the pain was. He said, and the thing was, in that particular church, a bunch of young people had just come back from Africa. Remember that story? He said, they just got back from Africa, and he said, man, they were fired up. He said, there was a fire burning in them like you can't believe. He said, and I sat down there, and he said, it hurt so bad to sit. He said, I had to I sat in a certain position because if I bent over at all, he said, the pain in my stomach was so intense, I couldn't take it. He said, but then people come down, there's young people, they're a rowdy bunch. He said, they come down and they started talking in tongues. And they started praying for me. And he said, they started calling on the name of Jesus. And he said, I don't know what was going on, but he said, I kept feeling these elbows in my knees. And he said, man, it was hurting so bad. He said, who's got their elbows in my knees? Get away from me, you're hurting me. He said, I forgot about the pain in my shoulder or my stomach because my knees were hurting so bad because his elbows were just grinding in my knees. He said, and when they got through praying, it was my elbows. He said, it was my own elbows. He said, and I couldn't even begin to lean over like that. He said, I couldn't lean over like that. It hurt so bad. He said, it was my elbows leaning on my knees. He said, and when they got through praying, he said, it dawned on me, hey, I'm leaning over, touching my knees with my elbows. I couldn't no more do that than the man in the moon. It hurt too bad. He said, I thought, God Almighty, I'm healed. He said, that night I went home and he said, I ate everything I could find. Remember the story? God totally healed him. And you say, how do you know? Well, he preached for us last March. I know. He was here. What an amazing testimony. Don't you agree? I'm a little bit tired of circumstances messing with me. But there is no easy answer, folks. Don't take it like it's not something Henry hasn't lived for years. How many of us could do that? I don't know whether I could do that or not. I don't know if I could endure the pain, honestly. I'm kind of a weenie. And I'm telling you what, I know my best friend died of stomach cancer. It killed him. Remember, Mom? We went up there to see him before he died, and he died. So it'll kill you, I promise you. It'll kill you dead. But all things are possible if you can believe. Cancer cannot hang on if you can hang on to God. I believe that let me just say this. I believe there's a lot of things that have been said over my life, probably over your life. They're definitely possible. Come on, help me. They're definitely possible. But that don't mean I'll ever necessarily see it. That's why it's time for me to come back to the church and fast and seek God, pray in tongues for a couple hours every day, maybe 5 or 6. You're looking at me like, well, what's your problem? You got nothing else to do. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Might as well do that. How many of you know that there's only one way to change things, and that's through the power of God? I remember I woke up, and I told you this before, I woke up one morning and these words came to me. your healing will spring forth as the